we don't have time to go into them. It will come later on what they are, but just in a general way, right? Why are they considered negative? Because if it happens to you, you understand that these actions are negative. Nobody wants to be killed. Okay, then you can be very smart and say, yeah, but there's people are very sick. They go to, you know, what's it called, Dignitas and Exit in Switzerland. We have 2 organizations like this. They give you liquid and then you can die. Yeah, okay, but I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about ordinary beings. If somebody would come into here with a bomb, I don't think somebody would say, oh, finally, somebody's coming to kill me. Nobody would do that. Yeah? If you come home and you see that your partner has another woman or another man in his bed, not sure if you would be very happy. Unless you want to separate and you were waiting for the occasion that you can say it's his fault. There's always another side to this whole thing. Yeah? But in a normal situation, you would not be happy. Yeah? Then stealing, well, if you have a very good insurance and you wanted to get rid of your car and it's very well insured, you're happy if somebody steals it, that's true. But normally we don't. Normally we're not very. Even your shoes, if you go out and your shoes are missing, even if it's just normal, ordinary flip-flops, then even that would create a short moment of, who took my shoes? Yeah? Have you ever had this thought and you feel it and then you see that you put them somewhere else? Have you ever noticed that when you're missing something, the first thought is always, who took it?
Yeah, it's mine.
It's always somebody else. Yeah? Okay, so that's why they're considered negative, because when it happens to us, we understand it creates suffering. Then is lying, so like not telling, knowingly not telling the truth. So then it's also, there's many degrees there, and it depends on the motivation also. That's what we said yesterday. It's not just the actions. It depends on the motivations of not telling the truth or speaking false words. Then harsh words, and creating with your speech, creating this harmony. Like a group is really going well together, and you start to go like, yeah, but you know, this one is, so people start to have doubts whether that's a nice or a good person or whatever. Yeah, creating splitting. And then the other one is like meaningless talk. That usually when we have gossip or meaningless talk, it's about somebody else. We're pointing out their faults that we're kind of afraid to say when they're there. It doesn't help if you talk about somebody's faults with somebody else. If you would like this person to change, then maybe it's not so good to tell them directly. If they ask, you can tell them. If they don't ask, leave them alone. Yeah? This obsessive wanting to tell somebody what they should change in their life. Do you notice that sometimes? So, how do you feel when people do it with you? You say, oh, thank you very much, I didn't notice that. I'm so happy that you told me. Is that how you react? Miri, yes, so you can tell everything to Miri what you would like to say. There you go, it's perfect object. In general, it's not like that, Miri, also, is it?
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's not like this. It's like we feel not understood, we feel hurt, we feel not respected. We feel it when it comes that way. When it goes that way, we mean well. Yeah. Okay, then the 3 of the mind are envy, like, you know, being totally obsessed with having, it's exaggerated, I know you're not like this, but being totally obsessed with having the same good car as the neighbor. Like, really, that's what is preoccupying you, that he has better house or better car or any other things, better job, or even spiritual practice, we can be jealous of others, envy. And envy and jealousy is such a loser emotion, because it doesn't take anything away from these other people, and it doesn't give you one moment of happiness. You can't enjoy what you have anymore. That's why it's such a loser emotion. At least with aversion, people get afraid of you, so they go. And you know, with attachment and desire, we get very clever. How can we get the thing? So we get something. So like this. So envy, then harmful thoughts, like really planning how to harm others, or rejoicing when they are undergoing hardships because we don't like them, so yeah, they deserve it, they will learn something from it. And wrong views. So again, with the wrong views here, it is like being convinced that something exists when it doesn't exist, and being convinced that something does not exist when it does exist. But talking about wrong views, like we had yesterday with Leora, what is written in the text, you know. But also for me, having a wrong view of, for example, that if I get enough money, and if I have a lot of friends, and if I have a lot of comfort, and if I, what's the other one? If I get a lot of praise, or if I'm famous, then I will be happy. That's also a wrong view. And there's many people walking around with that view. Because we can see that this is not true, because we all know people, maybe personally, maybe just through TV or something, they are healthy, they have money, they have many friends, they are very famous, they have a lot of qualities, and they commit suicide.
Thinking that things exist from their own side is also a wrong view?
Yeah. But a wrong view, it becomes a wrong view when you're convinced that it's like this. You hear things about, you hear teachings on dependent arising, you say, that's bullshit. So then it becomes a wrong view. When you're totally convinced that these flowers don't need any causes, they're just self-arisen. So what we have with this wrong view is kind of this instinctive wrong view. Yeah? The innate one. Then we have on top of it some learned kind of other things. Yeah? So these are, maybe I continue with that because we don't finish. Yael.
No problem.
Is your name, isn't it? Maybe we have time to go to the question. So when we do any of these actions, it actually creates an imprint on the mind that when 4 factors are present, now I need to say that because otherwise again it becomes too fuzzy. When 4 factors are present, like you have, moving towards there, you have the instinct to do it, like the motivation, you have an object, you do the action, and at the end you're happy about this. That creates a very, very strong imprint that can cause your next rebirth. And if it's a negative action with a negative motivation, then you will be reborn in what we talked about yesterday, in one of the lower states. So depending on the gravity of that act. Now again, I have to say this again and again and again. It's the Buddhist view. You don't have to accept it, and you can transfer it into this world. We see states that are very similar to the health. We see states that are very similar to hungry ghosts in humans. We see states that are very similar to animals in humans also, like only interested in comfort and food and sex, and when that is there, they're happy and they're content. And if it's not there, they get aggressive. You know, the monkeys in Dharamsala, when it was before the monsoon, when it's very dry and they couldn't find food, or in the winter when it was snowing, they so aggressive, they were attacking humans just because they were so frustrated because they had no food. Yeah, you're like that. And I don't know, you know, we're very decent people because we're well fed and we have enough to drink. I don't know how we would behave if we would lack these very basic things. I'm not sure. You know, sometimes when we are nice and secure, we're quite decent, so it's good. So at least we should pay attention that when everything is going well, then not to do negative actions, because that's really silly. But I can feel, even in Europe, because there people have even more security, they have more security than here. So they're not used to insecure states. So I was on the train to Austria, and all of a sudden, you know, the loudspeaker goes, you have to leave the train in Bludenz because the Arlberg is a high mountain. There was a landslide, so the tunnel is blocked. So you have to take a bus to go around. The energy in the train totally changed because we were all sitting, having our reserved seat, you know, being convinced we could go to Graz, which is like 10 hours away. In my seat, this is my seat, nobody's allowed to sit here because I have the ticket and this is the number, so I'm not allowed to sit here. And so a Swedish couple was on that train and they didn't have a reservation. And even Bludenz was 10 minutes away. People didn't allow them to sit there. So then I called him over and I said, come, it's okay, we can sit here, and then we just made space. So I could feel how when his security that everything is going well is taken away from us, then we start to, even very decent and very humble people in Europe, they immediately. But the good thing about that situation also is you can either make enemies, like otherwise you would have all gone on that train as total strangers, most probably, even though it's like a 10 hours journey. Yeah. But when the situation changes, you can either make enemies or friends. And I made quite a lot of friends. I had this 84-year-old woman that I was carrying a suitcase next to me, and then we just spent the whole journey together, and we shared our food, and so it was really nice. So it depends on us, it depends on our state of mind to see, I'm not the only one in that situation, maybe somebody needs help. Everybody can do that. And if you see elderly people, or at the airport also when you have this, the suitcases coming. And these days they come really fast, so maybe here's 3 and yours is on top there. So you see these people struggling to get their suitcases. Everybody else is kind of concentrated. Where's my It's like reaching out and helping somebody is such a nice gesture, but it's hardly ever done because you were anxious of missing your suitcase. It might go round one more time. And lo and behold, that's terrible, isn't it, if you're not getting it immediately off that thing. Just a few suggestions how to behave in the airport. Because then you spend the time in a much nicer way. If you look around, not obsessively, but who needs help, and you just reach out, it's such a nice way to spend your day. Instead of, what about me, trying to find pleasure and happiness. It's what about you? And then actually the end of the video is, what about you? Then he says, like Rinpoche has a very nice face, very gentle face. So he says, when you are happy, I always have to cry when I say it. When you are happy, I am happy too. And this is the secret. And then the heart is free.
What's the name of this film?
It's nice, huh?
What's the name of this film?
It's called What About Me? It's 6 minutes. It's like Mipam Rinpoche. Okay, so if you do any of these negative actions and at the time of death, because through another negative emotion, that negative imprint gets activated, kind of gets, as if you put water on a seed, it throws you into one of these lower states. So you can come and have a look afterwards. So here you have the hell realms, which is, no, that's hungry ghost, sorry. Where's the here? So it's like, fire burning, or here very cold, or lots of pain, and like this. So they say it's, well, one thing is it's not so great to be born there because there's a lot of pain, and as I said, a lot of paranoia. But also you can't practice there because you want to advance on this path. So this is why you try to avoid these lower states. Not necessarily because it's so much suffering. That is definitely selfish motivation. Is a good one. If somebody abstains from stealing my things because they're afraid of the police, for me that motivation is good enough. They don't need to be concerned about me. I'm happy with when they don't steal my things. So if we would have that motivation, I'm not doing unethical things because I don't want to suffer. Good enough. The world would be a wonderful place. So that is the worst suffering is here. So we want to avoid that. And in this rebirth that we have now, we did avoid that. So then the next one is the hungry ghosts, where there's just greed. They say they have like really big stomachs and very thin necks. So I remember when I was a kid, we saw pictures of children in Africa, Biafra, and that's how they were looking. Huge heads, very thin necks, and then these huge bellies also. So basically, it's a mind who cannot find anything to fulfill basic needs. And so again, if you want to transform it into the human realm, you can definitely find it. You can find it in addicts. And then the animals, the main suffering in the animal realm, why you don't want to go there is because you can have a nice life, but in general also animal wild animals have quite a difficult life, and also they don't have the mental capacities to develop the heart and to practice and to understand these things. This is why these 3 states are called the lower realms.
Is it possible to come out of this state?
It must be, because they say we've all been down there. Because it's another thing I didn't say. In Buddhism, mind has no beginning. But there's not a nothing and then something starts. So that the mind streams, just go on from life to life to life and take on different forms. That's also, when you hear this for the first time, it's like, how can that be? Well, the logic behind this, how can it be to have a real beginning without a cause? How can you have something without a cause? So if you want a result, you need the cause that was before the result. And for that cause, you also need a cause before that, otherwise it cannot become a cause. So that's the logic behind that there's no beginning. And if you look at the universe also, actually, there's no real beginning to material things. It's just transformation. Yeah? It's said in Buddhism, it's not possible to create something out of nothing. So this is why they say mind streams are beginningless. If you continue, you can wrap your mind around it, but beginningless is pretty big. I tell you.
And endless, right?
Huh?
Beginningless and endless.
Endless, yeah, but there can be transformation for the suffering. So
it's not an end.
It's a safe.
yeah, if you are not making a conscious effort to get out of samsara, there will be no end. But everybody has the potential to get out.
Yeah, but even when they get out of samsara, it's not an end.
No, it's not an end. If you're not going into nothingness, you become a fully awakened being.
That's why it's also endless, not beginningless.
Yeah.
You said, Anila, that in the areas we can't make positive actions. So
It's
how can we-
difficult. It's difficult to create positive things. So what did you want to say? How do we get out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we are creating now, our actions that are creating these imprints, they will lie on that mind stream, and at one point they will ripen. So we take everything with us. This is what I think I also said it, that when we die, the only thing we take with us is our karmic imprints, not just from this life, but also from previous life. So it's possible that something, when the mind is in the intermediate state, that something ripens, or positive thought or whatever, that ripens a positive imprint. But it's very difficult to get out of it, but it's possible by positive imprints that you have created in a human state, like now, that you take with you, that then at the end, because they also die, yeah? It's not eternal. Like some other traditions or systems, hell is eternal. Here's not eternal. It has causes. These causes can end. You die as a hell being, and then whatever karmic imprint ripens at the time of death, then you can kind of, your negative karma exhausted, and then you can come back up. But it's not easy, so we should not risk it to see, oh, I wonder how it works, so I don't have to do that. So animals are, they can have very comfortable existences, but they can't really create so much positive karma, it says. Okay? So these 3 states are created through negative actions, with a negative motivation, like negative emotion. Then we have the humans, which is, we come to that this afternoon, what are the causes to be reborn as a human. And then you have the upper states, who are much better than the humans, but like it's called the demigods and the gods. And so they have a lot of richnesses, and they have a lot of power, and there's a lot of pleasures. But we said we don't really want to go there, because then you say, well, like my schoolmates, why should I practice? I'm happy. So what happens is, like, you burn up all your positive energy that you have created to a lot of effort just by having pleasure for yourself, and then you plunge again. So, for example, the suffering of the God realms is during your whole life. I know it sounds a bit fantastic, okay? But I can see it. I can really see it in the human realm. Like your whole life, you were beautiful, healthy, this and that, lots of friends. And as you grow old, maybe a few weeks before death, the flowers that you're always wearing start to wither and start to get brown and bad. Your body starts to smell, and all your friends kind of go away from you. If I go to an, what's it called here, parents' home, we call it old people's home. If I go to an old people's home, I can see this happening. The friends don't come to visit anymore because, the mind is going to... So then there's a lot of loneliness at the end of life in the Gaudrian, because you're not as beautiful as the other glamour people anymore. And you're afraid because you see where you're going to be reborn and it's really low, maybe animal realm or something like that, because you burned up all your positive energy. I'm a bit reluctant sometimes to tell these things at the beginning of a Buddhist course, because I know it sounds quite fantastic and a bit, how can that be? But still, it's good for you to hear it. And as I said, you can see it in the human state. They say the difference between a human state and there, even though it's a lot of suffering, even you're born in Syria, you have a human body, you can be taken out of Syria, for example. Whereas there, you are born in the hell state, you have to wait until your negative imprints that kind of threw you there are exhausted. So, but again, then when you hear about emptiness, these are not places that when nobody has the karma to be there are empty, and all the machines to torture you are still there. They're mind states. Okay? Like the hell realms don't exist from their own side, really, but also the human realm doesn't exist from its own side, really. It only exists for us humans. Even we share common spaces. If you share your room with a mosquito, their world is different from ours. You see what I mean? They're also living in some kind of maybe even different dimension, because they have different senses, different body or whatever. They don't share. You think they're sharing the common space with you, but they don't. It depends very much on the body and on the mind, how you perceive things. And somebody, for example, who is in a psychiatric clinic, it's well possible that they're so paranoid that the people who want to help them, they see them as enemy. They're frightened that they want to poison them and all this, and they, So that state is in a hell state. A mind who would have enough, an anorexic mind is in a hungry ghost state, because whatever food is there, even if it's there for ordinary people who are not sick, who are not anorexic, it looks like very delicious food. For somebody who is anorexic, I don't know if you ever saw them eating, they try, they put it until here, then they put it back down and they push it to the side. I mean, I've seen people like this, and for them it's totally disgusting. And this is the mind state of a hungry ghost. When they see water, even though they're really thirsty, they see it as pus and blood, as something disgusting. So it's not so far-fetched, this whole thing, because we can see it in humans, these mind states. And we understand that this anorexic person sees the food as disgusting. No point to tell them, but look, it's really delicious. For them, it appears as disgusting. Do you have foods that you can't stand, but other people love it? Where does that come from? From the food or from your mind? Definitely from your mind. And I suffered so much because I don't like cheese, like these hard, stinking cheese that we have a lot of them in Switzerland. And my dad, for him it was paradise, so he would sit in front of me, force me to eat it, so that I would discover that it's delicious. And for me it was horrible. I felt like throwing up. Funny enough, it has disappeared. I'm not running after it, but I can eat it now. So I don't know, it's because of purification of some kind of karma that I experienced these cheeses disgusting. It's neither disgusting nor good from its own side. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is in the mind because it stinks. If we're honest, you know, it doesn't really smell nice. But people, the French, you know, and have this cheese, they go like. And the more expensive it is, the better it smells from it. Crazy. If any French people are watching this video, I love France, so don't worry. I do. I love to go to France. I love it anywhere. So I think it's okay. So these are the possible places of rebirth in samsara, but they're actually more. You know, samsara is not being awakened. Samsara is being still under the control of some delusions and karma. So then there's also two, we might as well mention them, probably you'll learn about them, but later on. It's the form realm and the formless realm, which come through positive karma, because you don't have a gross body anymore that you need to nourish, as just mind states, especially in the formless realms. And one is reborn there because you meditate, you train a lot to have mental quietude, but not out of compassion and not because you want to understand emptiness. This is why it's good at the beginning to include the two of them. But it takes a good meditator to be born up there, so don't worry so much that, oh, I don't want to go there. Yeah, it's okay. I think for us, attaining enlightenment in this lifetime, difficult to almost impossible, but what we can really put effort into, and maybe when I hear the Lama say we have to make sure that we not reborn in the lower state, I'm sure that for them that's fine, because I don't see them to do any negative actions, and the way they behave, it's very difficult to imagine that they can hide the negative thoughts like envy or ill will or whatever. So yeah, for them. So, but for us also, we have to apply effort. We can apply effort to abstain from negative actions when they're not necessary, because very often it's not necessary to lie or to cheat or whatever, not necessary. Your life doesn't depend on it. Still, by habit, we do it. So to go against these instincts and to go against these habits. This is why one can, if one wants, take vows at the beginning of your practice or as you go along in your practice. You can take vows for 24 hours only if you want. You can take vows for your life, so that you have these two wheels, like these support wheels, until you're sure enough that your mind has lost these instincts of acting in an unethical way. Do you understand? Imagine the world, the human world. Nobody kills, nobody steals, nobody lies, nobody takes other people's partners, nobody rapes anybody. That's the biggest act of sexual misconduct, is rape. Nobody rapes anybody, nobody forces anybody, nobody exploits anybody sexually, and nobody's drunk and nobody is drug addict. How would the world be? Quite nice, I think.
Boring.
Okay.
May we have a boring world?
Okay, so Israel is pretty not boring, I think. Would you, if you would have a choice, would you choose it?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, then it's not for you, this whole thing. If you think the world is boring when nobody kind of is doing negative actions, then maybe the practice will be very boring for you. You will not be interested. Whereas if you have an interest in not contributing to this suffering that we have because of unethical behavior, then the practice becomes interesting. And if the practice is not interesting, then it's difficult, it's almost impossible to practice. There will be no transformation. This is why it's so important, always at the beginning, what do I want? What kind of person do I want to be? And to meditate on this unsatisfactory. What is unsatisfactory in my existence? If it's outer conditions, then it's also your unethical behavior from past lives. If it's inner conditions, then you can do something about it by not creating more negative karma to have difficult outer conditions. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, but I struggle with the fact that I don't want to be a good person, and I don't have this motivation. I don't have it.
You can work on
So
it.
I am going to be an animal.
You what?
I'm going to be an animal.
You